and somebody who was done very interesting things across a wide spectrum. So I'm sure all of you are looking forward to this conversation with her. We'll start in just a couple of minutes.
Hi Kavita ma'am, how are you? Ankit this side.
Well, Ankit, thank you for joining today. Good to
Thank
have
you
you.
ma'am.
Okay, so let's begin. Good morning, everybody. I have with me Leela Priyadarshini, and for the next hour or so, we're going to have a fascinating conversation about blending the different sides of your brain and the different kinds of analytical and creative capabilities in designing your work and careers. This is a topic of great interest to me as well because I work in the space of the future of work and future ready skills. And I think in the 21st century, and especially in the last few months, we've seen how important it is to really have build resilient careers. And resilient careers in the future, even more so, are going to be careers which blend the hard and the soft, the analytical and the creative. And we have a brilliant example of somebody who's been doing this for the last 25 years plus. So I'm going to fire away a number of questions to understand Leela's fascinating journey and for her to share with us all the different, learnings and experiences of being able to do this so that we can build more resilient careers. Welcome, Leela.
Thank you, Kavita.
Tell us a little bit about your background and what really, so you've been working in the field of marketing, branding, strategy, business consulting, but it all started somewhere. Where was that place where it started? And then how did it really take off?
Oh man, that's a long journey. And for the last few days, I've been thinking about my long journey. So, let me put it this way. When I was in school, I learned about the fact that the different skill sets ignite different parts of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So my emphasis throughout my school life until about my 12th or whatever, and has been going on till now, is to teach myself new things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so whether it was cooking, whether it was tailoring, whether it was embroidery, whether it was short, what do you call it, typing, everything was to ignite a different part of the brain. So I learned painting. I used to play the violin. I used to write poems since the time I was in class 5. So everything was to ignite different parts of the brain. How it would come together, I had no clue.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an interesting journey. I thought how it is only now that I am reflecting back on what all I have done and where all I have used certain skills. But otherwise, it was about just that experimentation and going with it.
Right. So experimentation seems to have played a very important part in bringing you to where you are. And how did that that phase of experimentation lead you to perhaps, joining a very, what is considered business and traditional management institute, and that too the most, prestigious institute. So what made you want to join IIM?
Oh, that's an easy question, you know. So when I was in class, again, 5, I wrote an essay called My Ambition in Life. And that time I wanted to be a nuclear physicist.
Okay.
Okay, so therefore, until a particular age, until my graduation, I followed that. Okay, where I became, very steeped in physics and logical thinking. And the great thing about one of the reasons why I learned to play the violin is because Einstein used to play the violin, and I said, that will help, creative thinking in this space. So I said, okay, let's learn how to play the violin, and it just so happened that I was a fluke, in the sense that I had a bet with one of my friends who said, no girls are going to get into IIM. This was in 89, 90, so 91 to 93 is when I was in IIM. So you can imagine. And I'm from Odisha, from Bhubaneswar, so not a single girl had gone to IIM from there at that point of time. So I just got into IIM, and I got into IIM Ahmedabad. So my dad said, I mean, if you've gotten there, you might as well continue.
Mm-hmm.
If not IIM Ahmedabad, it's possible that I would have been in NASA sometime.
Really? Wow. That's a very different trajectory, right?
Yes, as I said. Didn't imagine, but I am happy with it.
Right. So this journey of yours brings me to the question that how do you, so in that time when you had these multiple different interests, experimenting with everything from painting to poetry to, violin and physics, what do you think, how does that coexist with something as linear as, say, preparing to get into a B school? Because this is something which I come across a lot of students having these, these kinds of doubts about, oh, if I'm a jack of so many trades, as they
Yeah.
think of it, then how did I get the focus, the discipline to be able to do this, and should I even be attempting to do this? So what would you want to tell about that aspect?
So there are two separate questions you asked. Okay. So one is, how do I combine my creative pursuits, so to speak, with the logical thinking? The two is, how do I get into the discipline of getting into IIM Ahmedabad? Yeah, they're two separate questions, and to me, they are therefore not dependent on each other. Being creative does not mean that you don't have discipline.
Yeah, that's an important lesson for everyone to hear.
Yeah. So being creative means being creative in whatever you do, but discipline is required to complete anything, to get anything you want. So I remember the time when I was preparing for CAT, for example, I have slept for 3 hours every night because I had my college, classes, I had college exams, and I had CAT to prepare for. So I have slept for 3 hours every night for a few months. The discipline was important because otherwise I would not have been able to crack CAT, and the point was I wanted to win the bet. So that was it.
Yeah. And during your experience at IIM or immediately after that, what made you choose a career in marketing and advertising? Was it, all these aspects of creative expression? Tell us about what, made that choice happen.
It was very interesting when when I was in IIM Ahmedabad, I thought I was not going to fit in. Okay, because my pursuit, way of thinking was far more radical than I realized when I went in. Yeah? So I would, people would see me sitting in different parts of IIM and sketching. I've made a series of paintings and sketches when I was there. Okay, and I had an exhibition afterwards, looking back onto that. So it took me, but I learned many things from IIM just by being there. And there are certain courses which helped me open my mind. There was a course called Creativity and Innovation, which was which was my second year. The marketing advertising part of it was easier. So that was easier because my dad wanted me to take a a career in finance, because he said, you know what, then you will be home by 5 o'clock, and that's good for girls. And I was telling my dad, you have no clue what banking is. He was in the revenue services. He has, he was working in the tax department. So he really didn't know what it meant, but it really put me off. Yeah. So the point about advertising and marketing was more from the angle of, to me, marketing became a combination, and strategy, actually. Strategy was a combination. When you shed the barriers that we put in our minds, this is finance, this is HR, this is this. This is when I realized my, my skills came to the fore. Yeah. Then I'm not artificially saying it's a marketing problem. It's an HR problem. It's this problem. There is a problem that's been identified, and the great thing about Ahmedabad is the case study method. So it helps in, and there's a lovely course called Strategy Formulation and Implementation. Yeah, I love that, because that particular course helped me in identifying that there is no such thing called marketing advertising when you run a business. When you run a business, there is a problem. Okay, now you have to find what is the real problem and how do you then, solve it. And that helped me shed these, walls, because of which I could be creative in a managerial sense. Okay. Now, advertising marketing is because the way, life is structured, you have to pick up something. And marketing and advertising seemed a little more creative way of looking at it, and especially advertising, because we are swayed by visuals and music and dialogues, etc. So therefore, that's something that found an easy resonance with me. That was only. So that's how it was.
Right. So it looks like you had a number of different interests which somehow, coalesced together in this space of marketing and advertising, right?
Yeah.
So how did you realize, and what did you do as you moved on in your career, and you made some very, you had some great progress in the kind of work that you did. So when did you realize that this kind of work that you were doing was actually consciously integrating or utilizing your creative and your analytical abilities? And then did you make that a more, conscious part of how you are approaching your work?
That's a very interesting question, because it took me some time. Okay, until a certain stage, this is work and this is, hobby. I mean, or an expression of myself. Writing a story, writing a poem, painting. And I remember the first 2 years, I said, yeah, I'm working because right now I need enough money to fund my art. Okay, so I was not very sure in the beginning when I started working. Did I take the right decision in joining a school called IIM Ahmedabad, taking up a job in advertising, and should I therefore be an artist? Because my art teacher when I was in school told me that because of my skill in art, I could very easily get a art scholarship in Paris. But in those days, I don't think I had enough guts. Enough guts to take that step. And I don't think I would have asked my dad at that point of time, because I don't think art was appreciated well enough. Even though I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted, it was not appreciated that much. It's only when I consciously, after 2 years into working, I had a meltdown. Basically, I went and met my professor. What do I do? So he said, okay, if you want to go and learn art full time, why don't you go and check out JJ School of Arts and check out what is the process. And when I went there, JJ School of Arts said that we have already closed admissions into this thing. So therefore, and you're supposed to have taken a test in March or something like that to be able to do this. I said, okay, now March is gone. It's already July, August. What do I do? Then I consciously decided that if I cannot be a full-time artist, then let me integrate art and creativity into my work. And that's when I started. And that journey has taken me places.
Wow, that's quite something. That is something which I feel so strongly about, and I resonate with it because in my own journey as well, I've seen how the art for me has been about writing, and I think that's how I've also discovered and stumbled my way into integrating art into my work. Fascinating. Right. So, tell me something about how you see what is, in the current scenario, we've moved far ahead of, those difficult times in the 90s when people used to look with disdain upon artists and look upon, bankers as most elevated beings, right? We are in a better place now. Do you see this actually in the workplace? Because you are in the kind of work where I wanted to ask you that do you find greater acceptance of people integrating their other interests, whether they are creative interests or maybe the other side, analytical interests into creative expression? So what do you find in the current, work scenario?
Interestingly enough, when people are consciously thinking about it, okay, they're looking at what you put up. So if I have a client meeting and whatever, they're not interested in whether I integrated creativity into my thinking or not. They're just looking for a solution which is, which is different, which is not expected. And so it is almost like a process of integrating a way of thinking into what I do, rather than looking for it consciously. It's almost I'm not even conscious about the fact. Okay, many times. I'm not saying all the time. Many times that I have really stepped out of the box. It's only when I look back on it and I say, oh, that is something that I couldn't have. It's almost like, when you go to a logical one plus, then you take another step, and then there is a leap.
Right, right.
The leap is something you cannot predict. Okay, but when you have taken the leap, then you look back and say, I've taken the leap, but it's very easy to put the logic behind it. Yeah, so the customer, whoever you're talking to, whether it is a client or it is somebody else or it is a team member, they're looking for that one thing which is different from the rest. It is not about whether you integrate it or not and how you integrate it or not. So in that sense, the rubrics of thinking, critical thinking, creativity, etc., the rubrics you start putting together, the rubrics of thinking, critical thinking, the extreme of critical thinking is creativity. Yeah. Even Einstein talks about creativity as, as almost like intuition, which the brain cannot yet find time to explain, if I'm paraphrasing it right. So, that's how it is. And if Einstein could find creativity in physics, theory of relativity is a leap. It's not logical.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's only now that you're finding, the reality to support it.
Right. Right.
So somehow it has to come from a way of thinking and the way you approach it. Sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious.
Right. But in your own experience, having done this not very consciously at the same time, do you feel that this has paid higher dividends for you than maybe for those who, stuck to the purely, whatever they knew the best and done it only the analytical way or only the creative way? So tell us about how does it actually affect and make you more successful at what you do?
So let me give an example of something which I thought was a beautiful example of how creativity enhances strategic thinking. So there was a friend of mine was telling me about an Asian Paint ad, okay, which is getting released. Asian Paints has this Mera Wala, cream campaign that they were running.
Yeah.
So during that time, I think during Janmashtami, they were launching a different blue and they were calling it Mera Wala blue. Okay, and somebody showed it to one of the creative directors and he said, Mera Wala blue.
Mera Wala, wow.
So
yeah.
just see it's just a subtle word which took it from this level to another level altogether. Yeah, so in that sense, it is impossible to imagine, okay, that everybody is not using creativity in some way or the other.
Yeah.
It's just that some are a little more fluid about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some are little less fluid about it.
Hmm.
Okay. Now in my field, okay, one of the things that I pride myself in, so to speak, two things I pride myself in is I can see patterns.
Hmm.
Okay, patterns in organizations, patterns in communication, patterns in strategy, patterns in what customers are doing. I can see patterns. Okay, it's almost visual, and that's where my visual acuity really helps. And then trying to transform the pattern from this to that. Okay, it also is a visual transition for me. So one of the interesting examples is in Procter & Gamble. Okay, they use what they call a ad map. Okay, so there is a situation of where the situation is today, then you have a situation of where you want it to be, and then how do you map the process. Okay, now
right.
so to me that visualization of where you are and where you want to be, and therefore how do you go about it, mapping the process, is a technique that I use in all my strategies, not in the same way that Procter & Gamble started, but in the way that I have managed to use it. But that is one of the ways in which I have used this and taken it to another, level. Now, recognizing patterns is important. Being wary about whether it is biased, non-biased, whether it is, saying a certain thing about it is another thing altogether. Yeah. Having a judgment on the pattern is different from recognizing a pattern.
Yeah. Understand. Right. So I'm now going to move forward to another question about what you do right now, right? So in your current work, and I know you're doing various kinds of things from brand strategy and consulting to storytelling for children, right? Developing book, apps and art for apps, right? So tell me, how do you blend the digital and the creative and the analytical in the digital space, in the logical world of technology?
So let me give you two examples of what we're doing. One is digital, one which is non-digital. Okay, so there's a one which is a little old. Okay, with when I was working on levers. Okay, we were working on a strategy in 2001. I made a presentation to Unilever on how to take what should be their digital strategy. Okay, and the approach I had taken, okay, was completely, out of the box from what was happening at that point of time. Okay, I finally managed to call it meta categorization, and I wrote a paper on it, but did not complete it enough to send it to Harvard Business Review. But yeah, it was that scale of thinking. Yeah, and two, recently when we were looking at a situation called iron deficiency. Yeah, so we went for a pitch, and this lady said we want to look for a solution for this because there have been so many people who are suffering from this iron deficiency in India. Women and children are suffering from it, and therefore we have introduced tablets. We've done this, we've done that, and nothing is really working because there's a compliance issue. People don't remember to take the tablets. So we thought of but one of the things we went back to was this old thing called, Ayurveda. Okay, there is a practice, okay, of cooking in iron vessels.
Yes.
Right. So we said, okay, let's take that thought forward, and instead of cooking in iron vessels, we created what we call a lohe ka palak. Okay, so it's a iron, specially created iron shape in the form of a palak leaf.
Palak ka patta. Yeah.
Palak ka patta, which you add to any cooking, and it enhances the iron content in that. So it is enough to enhance your iron intake, not enough to give you any toxicity. You can also boil it in water and add some neem to it and drink it through the entire day, and you will have the same effect, and whatever works for you. Yeah. So these are two different ways of using it. Now, technology to me is malleable. Okay. So technology is not technology. Technology is what you want it to do. So I'm not thinking of whether this can be done in this is what technology can do. This is a problem. There's a solution, and can we use technology or digital in it? For example, we are working with ISKCON Dwarka to raise 150 crores for building the temple. Right? We've been working with them now for 1.5 years. So when we started, they had no real digital presence. They had a website, and we realized that digital is only going to go halfway. So our job to identifying the problem was that how do you get people to the temple? The moment they come to the temple and are engaged, then they will definitely donate. You have an easy way. So we had two tasks. One is how do you engage with them online? How do, of course, therefore there's a certain set of people who will never come up to the temple. And therefore, how do you get them to contribute to whatever you're doing? And there's the other one, which is how do you get them integrated into the activities of the temple so they come there? So by doing that combination, by creating certain events, we managed to, change in 1 year 1,400 contributors to 32,000 contributors.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And see, the point is how to use technology is more important than what is technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's like creative thinking. It's like creative thinking. It's just another tool.
Right. So I'm going to ask you one more question and then leave it open for the people in the group in this meeting to ask more questions. So is there any conscious way or any recommendation that you have about how to bring more of these into the way that you work and build your careers and build your work? Blend the different kinds of abilities that you have and use both of these abilities, the analytical and the creative, in creating work and building.
If we, one of the ways to look at it, so there are many practices that I can share with you, but one big way is to look at that, stop thinking of it as creative and, logical. Somehow the brain doesn't think of it like that. Daniel Kahneman talks about, thinking fast and slow. I read about different parts of the brain getting ignited because of different things that you're doing. Somehow it comes together, which I don't think science is able to explain. Okay, so if you were to drop that hat, that's easier. Okay, but start looking for innovative solutions in whatever you are looking at, or an innovative approach, or that kind of thing really works. So some habits that I have used in the past, now I am a little better at it, so I don't use them as much. But there was a time when I used to, every morning I used to get up, and after getting ready to work, or just before going off to work, I would identify 5 lateral thinking questions. Okay, and I would write it. I would write the answers, solutions, because for me it was about opening up the mind. How do you consciously open up your mind so that during the day you're able to do that?
Absolutely. Right.
So whether it is reading the book called Who Moved, How Do You Move Mount Fuji? Okay, have you heard about the book? So there's a book called How Do You Move Mount Fuji. Is a book about questions that techies are asked.
Okay.
Okay. When you want to join Microsoft or Google, of course Microsoft has said they don't use it anymore. But it was about questions, almost impossible questions.
Okay.
So they want to know how you think and how you approach. So it was how do you know the weight of a jet line? So these kind of questions are exploratory questions, and it helps you open your mind to combine all your various ways of thinking and all the knowledge that you have. The other thing is to keep reading. The more knowledge you have, the more areas of your brain get ignited. Yeah. So
very interesting.
So then these are the things that so keep reading, consciously do this lateral thinking exercise. I think those are two big ways of doing it. And lastly is actually when I am in the middle of some assignment, okay, I usually, my intent is to find the problem. If I identify the problem properly, the answer is easier. Mostly we don't ask the right question, so we don't get the right answer. So the idea is to get the right question. Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. And as in coaching, that's exactly what my work is all about, asking the right question. The answer is always available. So on that note, in fact, since you're talking about the problem and the questions, let me ask you some of the questions which have come up in the chat window.
Sure.
So Azam, are you here? Would you like to ask your question, or shall I read it out? So Azam has written that he's written in response to your part about patterns that isn't operating in patterns a little biased, and does it give way to a fixed way of thinking? Although we do have to start somewhere for sure.
Let me answer that. I think I answered that partially. So it's
before you answer, Leera. Hi, Leera. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Nice. Please continue. Sorry, Kavita. I couldn't be there. Yeah.
Hi, Azam. Yeah.
So what I would like to say is recognizing a pattern is not a bias. But recognizing a pattern and doing something about it is how you deal with the pattern. Yeah. So the bias is not. So what is a bias? Bias is a way of thinking, right? So you have to recognize the bias. You have to recognize the pattern. That's all. Not asking you to work on that.
Thank you, Leera.
Would you also like to ask anything else about, you've mentioned something around Daniel Kahneman.
So I just summarized because, so like the way, Leera, you just put it up, that it all comes into place. And this reminds you of a quote from the book Einstein Dreams by Alan Lightman, where he says, nature seeks order. So and then you rightly said it, it's more about, it figures it out. So this is the space where I am in. If you want to add anything onto it, feel free. Otherwise, this is the state of, thinking that I am in after listening to you.
I'm not sure I get the question, but I think one of my learnings from Daniel Kahneman is there is nothing left or right brain. There is just focus or non-focus. Like I think if I remember correctly, the example of the judges being more tolerant about certain things because they have had their breakfast or their lunch. Before lunch and after lunch of their judgments, there is a pattern.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
So for me, it was more about knowing my own follies. So I know that. So therefore, okay, I must always have a full stomach and not be thinking about food. Okay, for example, very simple things, and not try to do complicated things along. When you're doing some other stuff. So to me, those examples were more in terms of what I would do in life rather than the way of thinking. Yeah. And my approach also is about, if you look at his Thinking Fast and Slow, he breaks it down. Okay, he uses information, he uses data to support whatever he's saying. So so the way I would look at the book is the way he has used data to come up with a theory and then support it. So mine was not so much about the way of thinking.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to ask Leera about her experiences, her practices for cultivating these different, capabilities? She shared some of them.
So let me tell you something about my stories. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Oh, there's somebody else who's asked a question.
Okay, I'll just look at the chat. Yeah. Ankit, would you like to ask your question?
Hello.
Yeah, Ankit.
Hi, Leela, how are you?
I'm good, Ankit.
Leela, I just want to know. See, I am in a current starting phase of my career, so I just want to know that for more self-motivating and to grow up the career, which are the must-read books, because books are the essential part of our life. So they keep more self-motivating us. So I want to know few big books which can recommend you, which can be recommended by you too.
Interesting question. I read everything. I mean, from history to biography to art and culture to everything else. But I can give you a couple of names which I like revisiting. In a in some ways, Moonwalking with Einstein. Moonwalking with Einstein is a book about memory and how to tag your memory so that you remember. I like that book a lot, and I love the name, Moonwalking with Einstein. That's something that I would encourage people to read because it helps organize your thoughts in a particular manner. I would also suggest reading Stephen Hawking's Brief History of Time because that's one of my ultimate favorites. My favorite writers are Isaac Asimov rather than Clayton Christensen. I am more into. I like reading about fiction, science fiction more than I like reading about business. Even though I have to read about business because that's what most people read. Okay, that's a way of keeping in touch. But what helps in nurturing the creative side of my mind is more to do with science, history, science fiction. Those are the things that really helps me. About art, I love reading about Picasso, and Van Gogh. Van Gogh is one of my favorite artists, or Matisse. So I love, reading about these guys.
Thanks, Leela.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, Ankit, since you said that you're at the start of your career, as Leela was saying, read everything and anything which appeals to you. So don't have too many filters about I should be reading this kind of thing and this is what will be useful for me. If something is of interest to you, if it is on science, if it is around business, literature, art, pick it up, start reading. The brain, as she was saying, works in very complex and unimaginable ways, so it puts things together without us having to really box it into I need to read this to become a better business thinker. It will come. Right, Meera?
Yeah. In fact, I would say, I go to a bookstore. Nowadays, of course, I go to Amazon. But otherwise, I would go to a bookstore and I would just close my eyes and say, okay, which one will I pick? And somehow, I pick up books which just something there all the time. Because all books have something. You just have to, be too open to find that. So for me, there was a book called Passages, which I read many moons ago, which I found out later. It's a prize-winning novel about different stages of life. I for that, I never knew that that's something I would have consciously picked up.
That's a favorite of mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So Smita has a question. How do you manage to do so much in so little time? What do you do to stay calm in turbulent situations, which kind of test your patience?
Oh God, Smita. I think that two things that help. One is I meditate. Okay, so hopefully once in a while, and hopefully once a day. 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, depends on whatever the time I have or whatever time I want to do. Just keeping calm and connected to the world, and keep almost like the noise around you. Okay, to quieten the noise around you. So once you quieten the noise around you, I have noticed that I'm open to new ideas come. And because I have quietened the noise, I just don't think of just so many things to do. I just think of let's do this. It's almost like okay, it's like one foot in front of the other. Okay, we have to finish this today. Let's do it. Let's do it. I don't think of the fact that okay, too much work is, 18 hours is too much work, or 6 hours is less work. Whatever needs to be done will get done and it'll get completed. And
Yeah.
if I don't think of it, don't add any judgment to that, then remaining calm is much easier.
So do you
Thank
have
you,
a to-do list or you don't? Do you have a to-do or to-don't list?
I do. Sometimes listed and sometimes not listed in my notebook. But I have a paper on my desk all the time with a pen, so that irrespective of whatever comes my time, some idea comes, I just write it down. I don't want to lose any idea, because you never know what idea will come on what topic at what time. So keeping a notebook handy is always better. And sometimes I revisit it, sometimes I can't find it ever, but just having written it helps retain it in my mind.
Absolutely. Any others would like to ask questions of Leela about her, she's doing some very interesting work in storytelling right now. And, so why don't you tell us something about that, and maybe some others want to ask about something related to that.
So we are writing stories to teach children the basics. So class 1 to class 5, there's a certain curriculum that children follow. And they have to learn concepts in math, science, and other subjects. We decided that science and maths and geography, I love geography, by the way. And I haven't yet figured out how to do the history bit of it. But these three subjects, how do I, teach I have a child who is 10 years old. Okay, she's in class 6 now. So it all happened because I had to teach her. To teach her, I realized that gone are the days when you tell them, okay, this is the parts of a plant are this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this. The children today are not interested. Okay, so I came up with a story, for example. It's the simplest story that we have done. Okay, and this is the first story that we did was about how, you remember when we were kids, we learned about parts of the body, and one was saying, I'm better than you, I'm better than you, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. And so to use the same thing with the plants. So the stem says, I'm actually the best, okay, because I hold you up, etc., etc. So we took the themes of stories from different places. There's a moral thing which goes into the stories, and the stories are written like a story. So it's a drama. So different parts of a plant becomes a story like this. Types of plants become a story about friendship and tolerance. Okay, and we've written about birds and beaks. Okay, is about a competition. It's an Olympics for beaks. Olympic competition for beaks, and there's and how they compare with each other, and how there are dynamics floating about, who's going to vote for whom, kind of thing. So then what happens is the stories become more interesting. People remember facts when they're laced with emotion.
Yeah.
Just facts are something that they don't find it easy to remember. Us or children, doesn't matter. So if by identifying an emotion along with a fact, we make it easier for the children to understand and visualize and remember some of the stuff. So for example, the physical features of India is about, there are six areas in the physical features. It's about a story of a girl with superpowers. And she's lost her powers, and she has to do 6 tasks in different parts of India to be able to fulfill that. And therefore her journey into this, meeting different people, so it becomes a very integrated way of learning, and in fact far more interesting than, okay, the mountains in the north are called the Himalayas, and they're called the lower Himalayas, the middle Himalayas, and the higher Himalayas. Come on, I understand that.
Absolutely, yes.
No, and also what we're doing is our plan is to have augmented reality technology, okay, to support this so that it becomes even more interactive.
Right. So I have one question about how is it that you keep yourself, abreast of the latest technology? because learning technology is perhaps a different kind of capability than, giving expression to creative things. Is it or is it not? Is a question which I want to ask.
It's a point of view.
Hmm.
Okay, so if my entire thing is about learning something new, I learned how to program when I actually almost told my dad, I threatened my dad that I need the money to go and take this computer course after I finished my 12th, because I said I do not know what will happen out of it. That time there was no future to computers the
Hmm.
way it is today, but I said I have to do it. Okay, and I have taught myself various technology things because of sheer interest, and I am not in that respect I have done various things which I'm not very proud of. In the sense, I made mistakes. I tried to make my first website myself, and I managed to delete the entire thing. So, so being open to making mistakes in anything actually helps. And
Mm.
technology is just another thing to learn. And as long as you have a computer which can manage all this, why not? So, for example, now I paint on my iPad because it's easier for my augmented reality. Okay, my art is used in the augmented reality.
Hmm.
I don't like Photoshop and all the other things that people use to make art for that. So
Hmm.
all my hand drawn stuff is used in augmented reality.
Wonderful. Right. So it's a very big takeaway, I think, which a lot of us need to really imbibe, that if you have the interest and the motivation, then there is those barriers to I'm not a technology person, all of that becomes irrelevant because you learn as much as you need to in order to do what you want to do, right? Because
That's right.
that's what your interest is. You want to be able to give rein to your creative abilities around art. So learning using the iPad becomes just a means towards a more interesting end. Right?
Yeah.
And that's I think, something which a lot of us want to learn to imbibe that more and be okay with that. That we don't have to master the technology. So
Actually, the good thing about today is you don't need to know technology. You just need to know how to use technology. So
absolutely.
you don't have to be a coder. You can use all the different apps and be as creative as you need to. Whether it is the Garage band on the MacBook, yeah. Also, and Adobe Draw is what I use for drawing. So there are enough and more such places that you can use it. For example, I was watching the making of Frozen 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yesterday I was watching the making of Frozen 2, which is coming on Disney Hotstar. Yeah. And the way they have included technology, okay, because they need to have the movements frame map as per the the science of it. Okay, their technology, the emotion, therefore the visualization and the storytelling is amazing. I mean, to me, that is the culmination of everything.
True. Very nice. And we have a question here. What are the top 3 things which, so emotions people remember and not the facts. That's what you take in the context of stories. So what are the top 3 things which resonate with people, which can establish connection? What, according to you, are some of the things which can really establish connection?
A story. A story is what establishes connection. It's the emotion is only when it is part of a story. Okay, it's like hooking somebody inside. It's almost like laying a story. There's a path to that, and you're getting them into your world because you want to see them in a particular way, or you want them to see something in a particular way. Because the storytelling part of it, in fact, that's something that we are looking at. How do you teach people to tell stories so that they can invite people into their world? And that's an art. That's an art. I'm still learning. And how to do it. And of course, the story has to be interesting, but then it has to be narrated interestingly more than anything else. But then, what are the ways in which you can cue them to enter the world and carry them with you through it?
Yeah. Lovely. Is there any other question which anyone would like to pose? I think we've had a very interesting discussion around all kinds of things, right? Starting from going from, you know, how you, all the different fights that you had with your dad about it and how they turned out eventually to be, you know, very good for you because you ended up doing things that you really love and you've created such a fascinating body of work around that. So thank you very much, Leela, for spending time with all of us and sharing your journey and sharing all these wonderful practices around developing our whole capabilities.
Yeah.
So that we can use that and become more both successful and satisfied, I think, in the work that we do in our careers and creating the kind of careers that we want.
Yeah. So one parting thought would be, you know, be open,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and don't judge, and don't judge quickly.
Yeah. Lovely.
I think if you do that, then a lot of things happen. And
Mm.
have trust. The universe is out to help you. The universe is not out to get you.
Mm.
I guess that's the spiritual part of me talking, but yeah.
I think we need those reminders, especially now when it seems as if the universe is out to get us, but it isn't.
It
Right?
isn't. The universe is out to get everybody, not you alone. Don't
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah, fascinating. Great. Thank you so much, Leela, and lovely to have spent this last hour with you. I hope everybody else also took away as much as I did. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leela.